Stephen, people may not know that in his younger years, Abraham Lincoln was an atheist. I was surprised to hear that, and he rejected the very existence of God. Tell us about that phase of his life.
Well, Lincoln's parents were caught up in the revivals that sort of swept the western frontier at that time, and it was very emotional, very sort of bombastic, and Lincoln didn't have a great relationship with his father, so he started to turn away from their Christian faith almost immediately. But then his reading, his eager mind turned him towards the writings of Paine and Volney and Gibbon, some of the rationalists of the time. And he just simply decided to become really the village atheist. He challenged everybody's faith. He wrote little short manuscripts against Christianity. I will say just in brief that his friends really said later that it wasn't so much that he didn't believe in God, he was mad at God because he thought his mother's illegitimacy made him somehow marked or somehow rejected. So atheism, reaction to his parents, and then of course feeling cursed by God, all of that mixed in, and he had a long atheist period.
How do you account for his conversion? What changed his thinking on the Christian faith?
You know, unfortunately, what changed his thinking were a series of deaths. He lost his mother, he lost sons. He said at one point in his life he was haunted by this thought of rain falling on graves. But in the providence of God, each time there was a significant death in his life, there was a minister of the gospel there to speak to him. And so he lost a child as he was living in Springfield. Mary, his wife, just completely flipped out in her grief. But Abraham had a good minister who pulled in, shared the word with him, was a man gifted in apologetics so he could answer Lincoln's objections, concerns, intellectual problems. And he began then to come to a deep and genuine faith.
Even after he came to faith, Stephen, did he wrestle with some of the fundamentals of the Christian faith?
He wrestled with every fundamental of the Christian faith. He was a smart man. He had read extensively, and quite frankly, in his age, especially in politics, preachers had often misbehaved and turned him off. And so he had to process every individual Christian doctrine for himself. Now, he did come towards a view and a belief in a sovereign God who ruled in the affairs of men, and of course, that's what leads to his great speeches like the Second Inaugural Address and so on. But he was not a man who just accepted other men's testimony quickly. He was not a man who could just accept the traditional creeds uncritically. He had to study it out, research it on his own.
One of the anecdotes I find most fascinating is occurred on the day he was assassinated. And you write that he said that he longed to go to Jerusalem to walk in the Savior's steps. Tell us about that.
You know, whenever we read about Lincoln's death at Ford Theater, almost always the final words are something like Mary Lincoln saying, you know, the young couple that we're with here in the box, they're going to be embarrassed by me clinging to you so. And Abraham Lincoln says, why, they will think nothing of it, you know, that kind of thing. But Mary said later that they were continuing a conversation they had had during the day, and that conversation was about what they would do after the war. And Lincoln had said, I don't want to go back to Springfield. I want to go abroad. I want to rest. I want to go to Jerusalem. And then he said, I want to walk in the Savior's footsteps. And depending on which version of Mary's story you hear, those may have been the last words Abraham Lincoln ever spoke.
Wow.
John Wilkes Booth Derringer Ball entered his brain at that moment, and he never spoke again. So Lincoln was definitely on a journey, so much so he went from being village atheist to possibly his last words on earth being, I want to walk in the Savior's footsteps.
Well, the release of your book, Stephen, is timely because we're about to see the release of a new movie about Abraham Lincoln. You've had an opportunity to see an advanced screening of the movie. What was your impression of it?
Yes, I got to sneak out to L.A. and go to the screenwriters preview, and I've got to tell you, it is a powerful, powerful film. I think it's a gift to our nation at this time in our history with a lot of the disillusionment and cynicism that's come out of the elections and recent politics and events. It's got a few small flaws. It doesn't do justice to the issue of faith, which is why I'm glad my book's on the market. But what a powerful film, how well done, what an attempt to honor our history. And Daniel Day-Lewis as Lincoln is, you know, they use this word all the time in reviews, but he's a revelation. He actually becomes Lincoln. Him sitting still is a more powerful reflection of Lincoln than almost anything you can read or see in any other film. It really is a must-see, and I think it's going to impact our country at this time in our history.
Stephen Mansfield is author of Lincoln's Battle with God, a president's struggle with faith and what it meant for America. Stephen, it's always a privilege and pleasure to talk to you about the books you've written on the Christian faith and how it's affected us as a nation. Thanks for being with us to talk about Abraham Lincoln.
Lee, it's always good to be with you.